What's up guys, Kevin here from thesportsgeek.com, and this is going to be part 2 of my question and answer series about sports betting, DFS, and just life in general. Alright, so if you haven't checked out part 1, check it out, and I'm just going to get right into part 2 here. Do you really use the players you give to us as your picks also? Yeah, of course I do. If you watched my lineup review of my PGA video last week where I cashed pretty big, I had 3 of my 4 picks in that specific lineup. So yeah, absolutely, I use the same picks. How much variance do you have among your lineups? So I usually don't have too much variance. I like to find a core group of players no matter what sport, and I try to stick to those core group of players as much as I can. What are your thoughts on PGA cash games, and what strategy do you recommend for PGA cash games? So cash games are great for any sport. I don't play a lot of cash games for PGA, but if I did, I would try to, my strategy would be to try to get six golfers through the cut, not worry about who's going to win the tournament as much as who's going to make the cut. So I would try to spend my money on golfers maybe between $7,000 and $9,000 instead of going with a lineup where you're spending up on the top golfers at like $12,000 and having to pick players who aren't as good around $5,000 or $6,000. What advice would you give someone who can only afford to play smaller $5 and $10 games, including how to build a bankroll? So building a bankroll, doesn't matter what size player you are. You could be playing in 25-cent contest, $10 contest, or $100 contest. Building the bankroll is the same. If you haven't checked out my bankroll strategy video, check it out on my YouTube channel. Are you as successful at NFL as you are NBA? So yeah, I had a pretty big season last year in NFL, and I definitely think I'm more successful than I am at NBA. I just know the sport better and I know the players better. What does your DFS schedule look like for the week day by day? So I kind of answered this in the last video, kind of how I set up my week for each sport. But day by day, I basically wake up in the morning, check the slate, check the salaries, just kind of check what games are being played, that kind of stuff. I don't do too much strategy work or research. And then closer to tip off or closer to the game starts, whatever sport you're playing, that's kind of when I do most of my research and build my lineups. Do you have a regular job? So yeah, I run an online or internet marketing company. I work from home and I'm the only employee. When you're betting on sports, do you bet anything else besides spread betting? Yeah, I like to do over-under betting, money line betting, future bettings where you're betting on like who's gonna win the Super Bowl or who's gonna win this golf tournament. I like to do all different types of sports betting. How much time before my game should my team be organized? So this depends on the sport. If you're talking about NBA, there's lots of late news. So I would try to build your lineup within at least 20 minutes of the first tip. NFL, you can usually do it a day or two before and then just check for injuries. MLB, you've got to know the starting lineups. Golf, you could probably do a couple days before. So I guess it really depends on the sport, but my advice would be to build your lineups as close to the start as you can. How are you a Steelers fan? So my dad's been a big Steelers fan his whole life, and I was kind of born into being a Steelers fan, and I'm really happy I was. What are your top stats to look at for PGA? So for PGA, my top stats would be strokes gained putting, strokes gained tee to green, maybe driving distance is pretty big for most courses, course history, and recent form. Why are you so successful in DFS? So I've had quite a bit of success in DFS lately, and I think it's just kind of my approach. I've got a background in sports betting, and I like to bet on underdogs. And the same kind of thing happens in DFS. I like to bet on, or I like to pick players who are low owned, who a lot of people aren't picking. So if there's really popular picks that I don't have and those players do bad and my low owned players do well, then I can profit from that. Is this a part-time thing for you, or do you do it full-time, and do you use Fantasy Labs all the time? So this is definitely just part-time for me. I do have a job, I do other stuff during the day, but I do quite a bit of work with DFS. And then do I use Fantasy Labs all the time? Yes, every day for pretty much every sport that they offer. I'm on Fantasy Labs doing my research. What is your least favorite sport to play for DFS? So right now it's definitely soccer, just because I don't know much about the sport. I don't watch the sport at all, but if I did have a good lineup going in a soccer contest, I guarantee I would have some fun watching it. All right guys, so that's it for part 2. If you guys enjoyed this, make sure you click the thumbs up button and I'll do a part 3. I've still got like 200 more questions to go through. Cheers.